What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to talk about Marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time. 5'9" southpaw, could knock you out with either hand. 8th Street Gym, stand up. My brother Kurtis Sugar Anderson, stand up. Newark, New Jersey. Marvelous Marvin Hagler turned professional in 1973, and he would win the crown in 1980 to 1987. Let's talk about Marvelous Marvin Hagler right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Marvin Hagler's theme song, y'all. Woo! Marvin Nathaniel Hagler was born May 23, 1954 in Newark, New Jersey. He was a very strong middleweight, stood 5'9", converted southpaw, and could knock you out with either hand. He had a masterful right jab, menacing look on his face, and destruction and destroy was on his mind all the time. Now, Marvin Hagler could be spotted in 8th Street Gym, located in Newark, New Jersey. Marvin began boxing in Brockton, Massachusetts. He was trained by Goody and Pat Petronelli. Now, he would win 57 amateur bouts, becoming a middleweight champion in 1973, winning the AAU Amateur Athletic Union Championship. He returned amateur in 1969. And Marvin Hagler became a professional May 18, 1973, with a second-round knockout over Terry Ryan. On November 26, Marvin's luck would run out in 1974. You see, his winning streak would come to an end when he had the audacity to challenge 1972 Olympic gold medalist Sugar Ray Seales. And he would soon find out that the name Sugar Ray, an Olympic gold medalist, would not be a part of his makeup. See, Marvin Hagler would defeat Sugar Ray Seales on August 30th, 1974. But unfortunately for Marvin Hagler, once again, he would be overshined by the Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Marvin suffered his first loss January 13, 1976, at the Philadelphia Spectrum against 27-3 Bobby Boogaloo Watts. So 1976 would not be a good year for Marvelous Marvin Hagler, because a young man out of Maryland would come from out of nowhere and win a gold medal in a junior welterweight division. His name was Sugar Ray Leonard. On March 9, 1976, 32-3, Willie the Worm Monroe, Philadelphia Spectrum, would defeat Marvelous Marvin Hagler, handing him his second defeat at the Philadelphia Spectrum. Willie the Worm Monroe stood 6'1". He was 69 years of age. Marvin Hagler was 5'9". He had a 75-inch reach, and he was 21 years of age. Willie Monroe was from Alabama, and he was born June 5th, 1946. He would reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He died June 22nd, 2019. Just 73 years of age at the time of his death. He had 20 consecutive victories. I had the pleasure of meeting Willie the Worm Monroe. And I can tell you from personal experience, he was a stand-up guy. Faced fighters such as Stanley Haywood, Bill Douglas, who was the father of James Buster Douglas, Bobby Boogaloo Watts, Sugar Ray Seales, and David Love, Eugene Cyclone Hart, and Curtis Parker. I met every last one of these men that I just mentioned to you. So I can tell you from personal experience, they were all stand-up men. August 23, 1977, 23-year-old Marvelous Marvin Hagler would defeat 31-year-old Willie the Worm Monroe. Philadelphia Spectrum, second-round knockout. Referee was Tommy Reed. But unfortunately, once again, for Marvin Hagler, 1977 wouldn't do him any well, because September 24th, 1977, Frank Centauri Jr. would be knocked out in the 5th round at the Civic Center by none other than Sugar Ray Leonard. Thursday, August 24th, 1978, I attended a fight that I would never forget. A bout between Marvelous Marvin Hagler, who was 24 years of age at that time, and 35-year-old Bad Benny Briscoe, who was 16-5. They fought at the Philadelphia Spectrum. Marvin took the microphone after he defeated Benny Briscoe with an outstanding performance, masterful jab, moving from side to side. He outboxed Benny Briscoe. But he would take the microphone and he would call out a young man by the name of Ronnie Harris. After the referee, Tommy Reed, would raise the hand of this upcoming prospect, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Saturday, September 9th, 1978, 22-year-old Sugar Ray Leonard would defeat 25-year-old Floyd Mayweather Sr., who was 15-1 at that time, fought at the Civic Center in Providence, Rhode Island. And it would be a technical knockout in 10 rounds. Referee Martin Tober steps in to stop Floyd Mayweather Sr. from further punishment. September 7th, 1978, Thomas the Hitman Hearns would knock out Bruce Finch in the Olympic Stadium. So you see, 1978 wouldn't do Marvin Hagler any good, because every time he would come up with an impressive win, or he may lose, the other men, Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, would outshine him. On October 6, 1978, Sugar Ray defeats amateur star Randy Shields, who was 31-4. Now, Randy Shields defeated Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns in the amateurs, and he drew one and won one with Pete Ranzani. 1978, he defeated Ray Lampkin and lost to Wilfred Benitez. Referee Robert Ferreira stops Randy Shields with a 12-round technical knockout over Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Shields defeated Hearns in the amateurs. Saturday, 25th April, 1981, at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. A 24-year-old Marvin Hagler challenges Sugar Ray Shields. He was 26 years of age. It was on a Saturday night, February 3rd, 1979, Boston Garden, first round knockout. Referee Tommy Lawson would end the contest. Once again, unfortunately for Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard would outshine him. January 11th, 1979, referee Arthur McCarthy Sr. would stop 31-year-old Clyde Gray from further punishment. 10th round, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, who was 20 years of age. They called him the Motor City Cobra. Hearns defeats Bruce Curry at the Olympic Stadium in Detroit. Knocks him out in the third round. Thursday, June 28th, 1979, Arthur McCarthy Sr. stops the bout. So Marvin would be continually being outshined by these up-and-coming prospects. Marvin meets Vito Antuofermo on a Friday night, November 30th, 1979, for the WBC and the WBA Middleweight Championship. 15-round draw. Referee Mills Lane would call it a draw. And unfortunately, Marvin Hagler would not get his opportunity to become middleweight champion of the world. Now, Marvin was 25 years old and he stood 5'9.5". He had a 75-inch reach. Vito Antuofermo was 26, 5'7.5", and he had a 69-inch reach. And both men faced Bad Benny Briscoe and Willie Warren. So it looked like it would be an outstanding contest. Unfortunately, Ray Leonard would be on the same card. In fact, he would be the main event. He was 25-0, and he would defeat Wilfred Benitez. Last round knockout in the 15th. And once again, he would outshine Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Why? Because he would win the WBC Welterweight Championship belt. Marvin Hagler couldn't catch a break. Because had he won that title, it would have been a very good opportunity for him to perhaps be called the best of his time. But he would be getting draws, and he would not be getting victories that night. There would be a TKO, 2 minutes and 54 seconds in the 15th round, and the referee would step in, and Ray Leonard would be considered the world champion. Carlos Padilla would favor the victory for Ray Leonard. Benitez would earn $1.2 million, and Ray Leonard $1 million, at a crowd of 4,600 in the audience. And unfortunately, Marvin Hagler would hear the words of Ray Leonard stating that the crowd came out to see him. The trash talking would begin with Ray Leonard over Marvin Hagler. April 20th, 1980, Bobby Boogaloo Watts. Marvin Hagler would get a victory. He was 35-5-1 at Cumberland County, Civic Counties, Portland, Oregon. Marvin would score a second-round TKO over Bobby Boogaloo Watts. September 27th, 1980, Marvin Hagler gets an opportunity of a lifetime in facing Alan Minter. And Alan Minter would begin calling slurs and racial names over Marvin Hagler. They would fight at Wembley Arena. It would be for the WBC and the WBA. Marvin Hagler would knock out Alan Minter in 3 rounds. Hagler was 49-2. He was on the undercard. You had Tony Simpson. And Alan Minter was 38-6. But unfortunately for Marvin Hagler, he could not enjoy the fruit of his labor because he was not handed the belt in the ring, because cups and chairs and everything else would be thrown at Marvin Hagler. A barricade had to be provided for the safety of Marvin Hagler all the way to the dressing room. Once again, he would be outshined. Because this happened in 1980. Monday, March 31st, 1980, Ray Leonard would face United Kingdom 26-year-old Davy Boy Green. This was at the Capitol Center at Landover, Maryland, Ray Leonard's basically hometown. And unfortunately, Marvin Hagler will witness on television one of the greatest five-punch combinations ever thrown in the welterweight division outside of Sugar Ray Robinson. Ray Leonard would knock out Davy Boy Green. So that knockout would outshine the victory that Marvin Hagler would have over Alan Minter. And he would be outshined once again. June 20th, 1980, Sugar Ray Leonard would face 71-1 Roberto Duran, who was a former lightweight champion, one of the greatest lightweight champions of all times. He would fight him at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal for the WBC, World Welterweight Championship. Unfortunately, it would be Ray Leonard's loss. First time he would ever lose. But that loss would outshine the victory of Marvin Hagler when he defeated Alan Minter, because the conversation was about the loss of Sugar Ray Leonard. And 5 months later, Ray Leonard would get Roberto Duran back into the ring, November 25th, 1980. And he would face him once again. Dazzling display. And unfortunately, he would clown Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran would say no mas. And that conversation took off like a wildfire. And Marvin Hagler seemed like his name was lost in the wind. August 2nd, 1980, Thomas the Hitman Hearns would face Pepino Cuevas for the WBA Welterweight Championship. And unfortunately for Marvin Hagler, a right hand of beauty would land on the chin of Pepino Cuevas, and he would get hit once again on the way down. And unfortunately for Pepino Cuevas, he would be knocked out in a fashion where he didn't patent the move of that unbelievable knockout, because it was a dance that kids would be doing today. Hearns catches Cuevas with a beautiful straight right hand to the jaw and follow up with a counter. And Pepino Cuevas does an unbelievable rope-a-dope dance. They call it a stinky leg. The referee was Stanley Christensen. Thomas Hearns would KO him in 2 rounds and become a 21-year-old welterweight champion. So now the conversation was between Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas the Hitman Hearns. And Marvin Hagler's name would be a non-factor. Friday, December 3rd, 1982, Thomas Hearns defeats Wilfredo Benitez, WBC Super Welterweight Championship. And on the undercard, you had Lupe Pinter, KO'd by Wilfredo Gomez for the WBC World Super Bantamweight Championship. Unbelievable. Marvin Hagler fights Mustafa Hamshaw, Saturday, October 3rd, 1981, at the Horizon Arena. 11-round knockout, WBC, WBA middleweight championships. And there was no real talk about that. Why? Because Saturday, June 13th, 1981, Marvin gains a 15-round victory over former middleweight champion Vito Antuofermo at the Boston Garden for WBC and WBA. Referee Davey Pearl calls a halt to the fight in the 4th round. This was a happy moment for Marvin Hagler. But once again, unfortunately, in 1981, didn't do Marvin Hagler any justice, because Ray would distract him in defeating a group, Kalui, and Houston Astrodome, June 25th, 1981. September 16th, 1981, welterweight unification bout between Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard. Unbelievable. Marvin cannot take a break. But in May 1982, Leonard sets up a press conference with Roger Stafford. Unfortunately, due to a medical eye examination, he would see wiggly lines. And this was in Buffalo, and the fight would be called off. And Ray Leonard makes a comeback May 11th, 1984, over Kevin Spoiler Howard. Howard was 20-4 at the DCU Center, Worcester, Massachusetts. And after being dropped, Ray Leonard would decide to retire once again. Now, he would get up and he would knock out Kevin Howard, but unfortunately, he felt that it wasn't his time. So Marvin Hagler thought it would be a great opportunity for him to shine in 1984. But on August 15th, 1985, Marvin Hagler undisputed middleweight champion, would face Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Now, I had to get my ticket for this fight, and I was in the 8th row, and I witnessed one of the greatest middleweight championship bouts in boxing history. See, Marvin Hagler was 30 years old, he was 5'9.5", and he had a 75-inch reach. He was a southpaw. He had 60 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, and 50 knockouts. Thomas Hearns, 26 years of age, 6'1", 70-inch reach, 41 with 34 knockouts. Referee was Richard Steele. Richard Steele was stopped about in 3 rounds, but it would be some amazing fight. Let's take a look at that bout in the Marvin Hagler scrapbook. Now, I wanted to pull out this scrapbook because I wanted to give you an idea. This is Thomas the Hitman Hearns in his prime. He's holding a WBC belt. He's out of the Kronk stable. And he would be one of Emmanuel Stewart's proteges, along with Helmut Kente. And the 2 of them would be named the Motor City Cobras. But Thomas the Hitman Hearns had a knockout blow that would paralyze you for weeks. Here you have marvelous Marvin Hagler to your right. Thomas the Hitman Hearns is to your left. 2 of the greatest fighters of all times. And I was proud to say that I was at that fight. And I saw a fight of the life. I've been at many fights, over 250 bouts. And I've seen many brawls and slugfest. I was at all 3 Gotti fights with Mickey Ward. I was at Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo. I was at many wars. Jackie Lopez and Matthew Saad Muhammad. But this fight, in my opinion, was the thrill of my life. I'm just taking you on a short tour just to give you an idea of the press coverage that these men were getting at that time. This is in 1985. And Marvin wasn't on many covers at this point in his life, and he began to enjoy some of the coverages because he was a quiet young man, didn't really like to be around a lot of people, especially in his training time, but he began to enjoy this because Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns were supposed to fight in 1982. But Marvin Hagler was very upset with Thomas Hearns because Thomas Hearns was complaining about his pinky and he called off the fight. And Marvin Hagler would state that he would cut that pinky off. It was up to him for $1 million. Now here you have some of the magazine covers that were out at that time. And Marvin Hagler would enjoy the opportunity of being exposed. Boxing Scene, Ring Magazine, Boxing Illustrated, Big Book Boxing. You have Thomas Hearns on the cover of KO magazine. Like I said, these men were getting a lot of coverage at this time because Ray Leonard was out due to eye injury. Now, Thomas Hearns would make a statement that 3 rounds Marvin Hagler would be carried out of the ring. And lo and behold, Thomas Hearns was halfway right. because in the third round, he was carried out of the ring. It's a moment that I would never forget. One of the greatest boxing matches that I've ever attended. Now, the magazines in those days gave you a lot of coverage. You learned a lot of stories about these fighters, about what they were going through. And I had the pleasure of meeting Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns many occasions. And I met Hearns back in 1983 in Detroit's Kronk Gym. Marvin Hagler I met at various dinners. I also met him at the Boxing Hall of Fame. You have a young Thomas Hearns. He's sparring with the 5-time Golden Gloves winner, Olympic gold medalist, and Deontay Wilder's trainer, Mark Breland. Mark Breland had some jab. I was at many of his amateur shows and a lot of his professional fights. I want to give a shout out to 503 Lion. I promised him I would do an 80s video. My brother Junior the Truth. Cali Enigma. GG. Thomas Hearns, very underrated welterweight. One of the greatest fighters, complete fighters of all times. If he was in this era, my goodness. Marvin Hagler would have had a lot of fun today. Now, to talk about this fight a little bit, Marvin Hagler from the opening bell already had it etched in his brain that he had to take away the legs from Thomas Hearns, because Thomas Hearns had always showed that he was a little weak in the legs, but he was always top heavy. And it was somewhat of a rumor from Emmanuel Stewart's camp that there was someone in Thomas Hearns' dressing room giving him a massage. I don't believe that was the legs of his problem. The problem with his legs. I don't believe that. I believe that Marvin Hagler was hitting him with some low blows, hitting him in the hips. See, I was actually there. And I can see some of the effects. Thomas Hearns was fine before the middle of that first round. He started out fast. He came in a little lighter than he normally would. And he was getting hit with some low blows and hit to the side and to the hips. And I believe that's what weakened his legs. He was getting hit with body work, and he just started too fast. And he just didn't have it, after the first round. He just didn't have it. But his heart kicked in. And this is what gives you great fights. Here you see Thomas Hearns being carried out. And I said in another video, there's 5 criteria you have to have in order to be a champion. A real champion, not win a title once and defend it. A real champion where you defend it for many years. And you have to have leadership, principle, work ethics, and self-esteem. But that 5th and final dimension is spirituality. You have to have that. You don't have that, you're not going to hold the title. Because there's something you have to have when there's nothing in a textbook. You have to dig down deep. As Evander Holyfield always stated, he walked by faith and not by sight. And a man's job across the ring from you is to convince you that everything that you believe, everything you train for, is a facade. Because boxers are the biggest liars. They have to be in order to be in that ring. But if you believe in something higher than even you, when it's time to dig down deep, you'll be able to do so. Now, Hearns made a statement. He said, the reason why I slugged the way I did is because I had to. Marvin made me do it. And that's how you know you're in there with a real fighter. Because you will respond to what's necessary at that time. And a man who is successful is the man that will make you respond. Here you have Marvin Hagler. He has Thomas Holmes close to the ropes. He has him on his back foot, as you can see here. Referee Richard Steele. What he's looking at this point, he's looking into the soul of the eyes of Thomas Hearns. He's also looking at his knees, looking at his legs. And Marvin Hagler was called over to the ring doctor, Dr. Romeo, because his face was full of blood. He had suffered somewhat of a cut. He claims it was an elbow or a shoulder. He won't give credit to a punch. That's a mark of a warrior. Thomas Hearns and marvelous Marvin Hagler. Unbelievable. I'm going to show you the statement that Thomas Hearns made. It says here, "The reason I started out slugging is because I had to." Quote from Thomas